Master Tavern Keeper's History of the Old World.
Now, just wait a moment there, Septimus. We were just talking about the rejuvenation of the Temple of Manon. And now we're talking about murders.
Indeed. I hadn't even been in the port of Sartosa for a single day when I heard tell of the grim stories circulating around the quayside taverns. The first of these stories told of the death of one of the leading high priests of the temple in the wake of a terrible storm that had lashed the island the previous Mitterfrul, by which I mean the spring equinox neophytes. Apparently, the priest had been tortured, then lashed to a rock out on the sea's edge and left there to be drowned by the storm. By the time that anyone had found the body, the local sharks had already taken big, massive, bloody chunks out of the man.
Now, wait a moment, Septimus. If he was lashed to a rock, why didn't he just call out for help?
Well, I asked the same. The old salty sea dog that was relating the tale, though, seemed to take a great relish in telling me the reason why.
Why? Because his killers had ripped out his tongue, lad.
But he went on to explain that this final act of suffering had merely been the culmination of weeks of torment.
Old Neptuno, the priest, had been complaining throughout the weeks leading up to his disappearance. He said he was suffering from terrible nightmares that had made it impossible for him to get almost any sleep. He walked about like one of the walking dead and looked more and more exhausted each time any of us saw him. He said that in every dream he would find himself upon a beach from which he could not escape. A woman, draped in dripping fronds of blood-rack, would walk out from the sea, accompanied by some devilish sea creature that would try and kill him. He said that the dreams were so vivid and disturbing that he could no longer tell whether he was awake or still in his nightmare. And as the weeks passed, the more confused he became, until at last, he vanished, until we found him strapped to that rock, of course.
But, Master Tavern Keeper, you said that this was the first murder.
Yes, indeed. Apparently, over the coming months, more leading Mennonites, both priests and members of the congregation, began to disappear. Their bodies, or at least parts of their bodies, turning up in and around the sea. The climax of this killing spree occurred at Mitterbist, the autumn equinox. On this day, the master of the sailor priests of Sartosa, locally known as the Wave Lord, went missing, and neither him nor any of his body parts were ever found. But this was not the end, and in the coming months, little by little, the other sailor priests of Manon were whittled away as a new power arose.
Oh, yeah. The cult of Stromfels, perchance?
Exactly. Now, The sailor priests of Manan were not the only holy men to suffer at this point. The clerics of Myrmidia had also returned after the Arabians had been booted out, and they too wished to reclaim their own old temple. However, a cabal of powerful followers of Stromfels had already taken possession of it. They bloodily and violently prevented all attempts by the followers of Myrmidia to reoccupy it, and instead it remained under the control of the cult of Stromfels, pirates one and all, who decorated it with trophies and treasure taken in raids from all over the southern sea. Eventually, they renamed it the Casa Squalo, under the guidance and leadership of their self-styled Ocho de Cacciatori, their high priest.
Och, but why doesn't the prince there do anything? Doesn't he know about them and their murderous ways?
Ah, well, he knew, and so does his son, the current Prince Luca. But the pirates there bring in a good supply of loot and booty, and so a blind eye is turned to all their goings-on. And the evidence for them being the murderers was more, circumstantial than anything else, so the authorities could never pin it on the cult.
Ugh, typical.
Indeed. Anyway, since the start of the century, the cult has grown in influence throughout the Tilean Sea here, and even usurped the worship of Manan on a number of islands off the coast and some of the more isolated settlements on the peninsula proper.
Ugh, unbelievable.
But there is yet more, Sedrik. As Heinrich intimated earlier, Stromfels' worship is all hush-hush up on the shores of the Sea of Claws, but not so here, which means that we have communities of regular folk openly committing ritual murders to appease the shark god of yore, here, now, in our very modern 16th century.
Ugh, what do you mean? I get why them murders were happening on Saratosa. It was a power struggle between two rival groups. But why are regular believers killing in the name of, your man?
Ah, well, because it is a core tenet of their beliefs. No mercy, no quarter, and no prisoners taken. Survival of the strongest. Weakness is said to draw the ire of Stromfels, and so from the highest pirate lord to the lowliest wrecker, each will strive to become, stronger and more merciless than their fellows. So, if you are taken prisoner by a gaggle of cultists on one of their holy days, expect death, but pray that it's quick, for oft it will not be. Many victims are marooned on lifeless rocks to slowly rot away, whilst others are tossed into the sea to either drown or be eaten by sharks. And there's more, for no one is exempt from the gaze of Stromfels. The whole way of thinking of the cult includes everyone within the cult, from the lowliest neophyte to their leaders. Heck, even a priest who is perceived as weak can expect to be deposed by a rival at the earliest opportunity. Might makes right. Those further down the rung who show signs of weakness can expect to be sent on a suicidal raid to desecrate a temple of Manan. Those are the lucky ones. The unlucky ones may be forced to swim a stretch of shark-infested water, or to fight a grey-barbed shark with naught but a dagger. And for us regular folk, days to be particularly wary are the holy days of the cult, which, like the cult of Manan, are Mittafurul, the start of the hunting season for them, and Mittabist, the start of the stormy season. For on both these days, sacrifices must be made if a group numbers 10 or more. And, well, the sacrifice must either be a human or a sea elf. Nothing else will satisfy Stromfels.
Och, I have to say, there's something decidedly fishy about these fellas. Yeah. I get it, Master Alchemist, I get it. Yeah. Och, get what? What are you talking about?
I not thought you were one for puns, Sedrik.
Ach, I'm sorry, but I've no idea what you're talking about. Reichspiel's not my native tongue, don't forget. Just, would you like to explain to me, what is it that's so funny?
Nothing. Don't worry about it.